Our anniversary was perfect, or at least that's how it started. 15 years of marriage, and I still got butterflies seeing Claire laugh. We spent the evening at our favorite little Italian place, the one with the checkered tablecloths and candles melting into wine bottles. It was our spot, wrapped in warm memories and the scent of garlic bread. I remember feeling lucky, overwhelmingly lucky. The next morning was typical, the sound of the coffee maker, the chaos of getting the kids ready for school, and kisses goodbye. Claire was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. Not unusual for her work, but something about her laughter, a bit too high-pitched, made me pause. I can't believe how easy it was, she giggled into the phone. He has no idea. Curiosity pricked at me. Normally I'd respect her privacy, but something about the way she said those words made my heart sink. I moved closer, pretending to search for my car keys on the hall table. No, seriously, he thinks he's such a good judge of character. If only he knew. Her voice, usually so full of warmth when speaking to me, had a sharpness to it now. I strained to hear more, the sound of my own heartbeat loud in my ears. I found myself holding my breath, waiting for a punchline that never came. Instead, there was a pause, and then she whispered, something furtive and filled with excitement. "I'll tell you more tonight. He's just so clueless." The words stung. An unexpected slap. I stood there, frozen, as she continued to chat and laugh, oblivious to the storm she had just stirred in me. The keys in my hand felt heavy, unreal. Was she talking about me? Was there someone else? The questions spiraled, each more painful than the last. Walking out the door, I felt numb. The drive to work was a blur. My mind replayed the conversation over and over. It could be nothing, a misunderstanding. Perhaps she was planning a surprise for my upcoming birthday, or maybe it was a new project at work she wasn't ready to discuss. But the doubt had rooted deep, twisting through my thoughts like ivy. Throughout the day, I caught myself staring blankly at my computer screen, the numbers and emails meaningless. I tried to focus, to regain the rhythm of my routine, but her words echoed, a relentless echo that refused to be silenced. At lunch, I sat in my car, the phone heavy in my hands. I thought about calling her, confronting her right then and there, but fear held me back. Fear of the truth, fear of what it might mean for our family. What if my suspicions were right? What if our perfect life was just a facade, one that I had blindly contributed to year after year? By the time I returned home, the house was quiet, the kids at soccer practice, and Claire in the kitchen, humming as she cooked. She looked up and smiled, that same radiant smile that had won me over all those years ago. "Tough day?" she asked, her voice gentle, concerned. I nodded, managing a half smile as I approached her. The familiar scent of her perfume, the one I had picked out last Christmas, suddenly seemed foreign. I wanted to believe I was wrong, to laugh off the morning as a trivial mishearing. But as she reached out to touch my arm, a part of me recoiled, a small, silent betrayal by my own body. Dinner passed in a haze, my responses automatic. "How was your day?" she asked. "Fine," I lied, the word tasting bitter. I watched her across the table, searching her face for signs, for any hint of the deception I feared. That night, as I lay beside her, the distance between us felt like miles. The doubt was a wedge, cold and unyielding. I knew I couldn't ignore it, not anymore. The truth was out there, and I had to find it, for better or worse. That night was sleepless. The bed felt colder, the silence between us louder than any argument we'd ever had. I replayed her whispered phone conversation, each word a needle to my heart. How could this be the same woman who had pledged to grow old with me? The room felt suffocating, filled with shadows of doubt. The next morning I rose early, the decision made. Today I would confront her. My mind raced with possible outcomes. Would she deny everything? Confess? The uncertainty was maddening. As I brewed coffee, the sound of the machine hissing seemed to mock my indecision. I poured 2 cups, the aroma bitter in the thick tension of our kitchen. She came downstairs, her hair tousled from sleep, a soft reminder of the many mornings we had shared. "Good morning," she said, a trace of a smile on her lips. How could she smile? I handed her a cup, my hand steady, my heart anything but. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. Her smile faded, replaced by a flicker of concern. What's wrong? It's about yesterday, I began, then hesitated, the words catching in my throat. I overheard you talking on the phone. Her face changed, the color draining. Oh? You were bragging about deceiving me. Who were you talking to? My voice was calm, but inside, I was pleading for her to say it was all a misunderstanding. She set her coffee down, her fingers trembling slightly. It's not what you think, she started, her voice weak. Then explain it to me, please. My plea was desperate, clinging to a sliver of hope. She sighed, a long, heavy breath that seemed to carry the weight of her guilt. It was my sister. I was telling her about an affair. The word hung in the air, a suffocating fog. An affair, I repeated numbly. Yes, but it's over. It was a mistake. Her eyes were pleading now, seeking forgiveness. How long, I needed to know, even as I dreaded the answer. 6 months. The words were a blow, each one landing with precision. I stood, the chair scraping back sharply. Why, Claire, why would you do this? She stood too, reaching for me. I was lost. I felt like we were drifting apart. It didn't mean anything. That stung the most. The casual dismissal of our vows. And our kids, what were you thinking about them? Her eyes filled with tears. I never wanted to hurt them, or you. I stepped back out of her reach. You should have thought of that before. The conversation spiraled, a dance of accusation and regret. I wanted to understand, to find a reason that made sense, but there was none. It was chaos, a storm of heartbreak. Finally, I said, I need some time. I grabbed my keys, leaving the house, her sobs chasing me out the door. The drive was aimless, my thoughts circling. Betrayal from the person I trusted most. Where did we go from here? Could we go anywhere from here? As I parked by the river, the place where I had proposed all those years ago, the irony was bitter. Here, where I had offered her my forever, I wondered if that forever had just come to an end. Struggling with the weight of recent revelations, the decision to take a DNA test didn't come easy. The idea of doubting the paternity of our children felt like a betrayal in itself, but the need for the truth pushed past the guilt. Every laugh and every moment we had shared as a family now seemed under scrutiny, through no fault of their own. The moral implications of taking a DNA test without telling her spun in my mind. Was it an invasion of privacy? Absolutely. Was it necessary? Unfortunately, yes. Trust, once the cornerstone of our relationship, now lay in ruins, and only certainty could begin to rebuild it. It was not just about confronting a lie or confirming a suspicion. It was about securing my future steps, whatever they might be. After the kids had left for school, the house fell silent. That silence was my opportunity. The idea of using their toothbrushes crossed my mind, but it seemed too invasive, too personal. Instead, I found a few strands of hair on my daughter's hairbrush. The bristles, usually a source of morning battles over tangles, today offered a different challenge. Each strand was collected with a reverence, almost an apology. I'm doing this for us, I whispered, to no one, perhaps to myself, seeking absolution for this necessary intrusion. Next, my son's room offered another opportunity. A Band-Aid discarded in the trash after a weekend soccer scrape, a DNA sample delivered by routine childhood. Collecting it felt surreptitious, an act that should have been foreign in the loving home I had strived to build. The contrast between the mundane and the monumental was stark, as if the very fabric of our daily life was being repurposed for something it was never meant to support. With Sarpoilaire, the sample secured, the next step was to mail them to the lab. I chose one reputed for discreet, accurate results. Sitting in my car, outside the post office, the package in hand trembled slightly. Was I ready for the results? Yes and no. Yes, because living in uncertainty was becoming intolerable. No, because the results could alter everything I held dear. Sending off the package felt like releasing a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The drive back was automatic, the streets familiar, but viewed through a new lens of what could be the last days of my current life. At home, I scrubbed my hands, as if the physical act could cleanse the emotional residue. The house was still empty, quiet enough to hear the clock tick. each second a reminder of the waiting to come. Now, it was a waiting game. For results, for confrontation, for resolution. Whatever the outcome, the path forward had been set in motion by the need to know, a need that overshadowed all else, driven by the whisper of betrayal that had now shouted down every certainty I once held. The clock on the wall seemed to tick louder, marking the passage of time with a slow, steady rhythm that echoed the anxious beat of my heart. Every second that passed was a reminder of the impending results that could redefine the foundation of our family. I tried to distract myself with work, with books, with television, anything to escape the gravity of the impending news, but every moment was tinged with the undercurrent of what was to come. Over the years, our family had built a tapestry of memories, woven with threads of laughter, tears, vacations, and quiet evenings at home. I could still recall the joy of our first ultrasound, the overwhelming love that washed over me the first time I held our children, how we celebrated each milestone, from first steps to last day of school celebrations. These weren't just shared experiences, they were the pillars of my life. The thought that the connection could be based on a lie was a painful thorn lodged deep within my mind. As much as I wanted to, I couldn't stop the images from flowing, nor could I stop the doubts that came with them. Was there a moment when things changed, or had deception been a shadow in our marriage from the start? Had there been signs I overlooked because the truth was too difficult to consider? These questions haunted me, each a cruel whisper against the backdrop of my fears. Each day I watched my children play, their laughter a bittersweet sound. They were innocent, blissfully unaware of the storm that might soon break over our lives. I cherished these moments, all the while wondering if and how our relationship might change. Would my view of them shift? The love I had for them was unconditional, of that I was certain, but the fear was a chilling prospect. At night, the house would quiet down, and I'd find myself sitting in the darkness, waiting for sleep that seldom came easily. The silence of the house seemed to amplify my fears. What would knowing the truth mean for us as a family? How would we all cope if the foundations upon which we built our life were upended? The uncertainty was paralyzing, a mental and emotional purgatory with no clear end in sight. Conversations with Claire became strained, superficial. We talked about mundane things, meals, weather, trivial news, anything but the elephant in the room. I could tell she sensed my distance, my distraction, but neither of us dared to broach the real issues. Each conversation a dance around the deeper truths lurking beneath the surface. Every phone call made my heart race. Every email notification sent a jolt of adrenaline through me, wondering if this was the moment the results would come through. The wait was excruciating, a drawn-out anticipation that gnawed at me, testing the limits of my patience and emotional resilience. In quieter moments, I found myself grappling with what the future would hold. No matter the results, it was clear that things would never be the same again. This ordeal had irrevocably changed me, carving deep grooves of doubt and mistrust that might never fully heal. Whether we stayed together or parted ways, this chapter of our lives would always be marked by the pain of betrayal and the long, anxious wait for a truth that held the power to either mend or irreparably break our family's heart. The moment the email notification pinged, a simple alert on a screen, yet it felt as if the entire world halted. My breath, the ambient noise of the home, the distant sounds of children playing outside, all frozen in a singular, stretching moment. Hesitation gripped me before clicking to open it, a profound fear mingling with the desperate need for truth. The contents of the email were stark, unemotional, yet devastating in their clarity. The DNA results confirmed my deepest fears. The children I had loved, raised, and seen myself in were not biologically mine. Sitting alone with the results, the first waves of emotion crashed over me. Betrayal sliced through the numbness, sharp and precise, its blade tainted with 1,000 memories that now seemed colored by lies. Anger flared next, hot and blinding, a reflexive response to the raw wound of deception. But as the initial heat subsided, a profound sadness settled in, deep and consuming. It was not just a loss of trust in Claire, but a grieving for the family life I thought we had. The house felt smaller, as if the walls were inching closer, complicit in the secrets that had unraveled my reality. Each photograph, each piece of art that hung on those walls, every piece of furniture bore witness to years built on a foundation that was now revealed to be fraught with cracks. The joyous echoes of past laughter that once filled these spaces now sounded hollow, echoes of a past tainted by untruths. I needed to confront Claire to hear her side, to understand the why behind the deception that had spanned years. My mind raced through scenarios, each confrontation unfolding differently. In one, there were accusations hurled with the force of all my pain. In another, questions asked with a calm born of resignation, seeking to understand how and why she shattered our vows. Could there be any explanation that would suffice? Any reasoning that could mend the broken pieces of trust? As I planned what to say, the weight of the impending conversation bore down on me. This was not merely a confrontation about betrayal, it was a pivotal moment that would define the future of our family. Would there be room for forgiveness, or had the deceit cut too deep, severing what marital bonds remained? The thought of speaking to the kids loomed large over all other concerns. They remained my children in every way that mattered, but the truth changed the narrative of our family's story, introducing complexities I was unprepared to navigate. How could I explain to them, if it ever came to that the story of us had chapters filled with secrets? As evening approached, the home grew quieter, the usual sounds of a family evening now subdued, as if the house itself was holding its breath, awaiting the fallout. The dinner table, where we had shared so many meals, where I had once looked at Claire and seen my future, now felt like the stage for a play I never auditioned for, thrust into a role I was reluctant to play. In the solitude of our bedroom, I rehearsed the words, each iteration a slight variation of the last, none feeling adequate, each rehearsal a reminder of the gravity of the truth now resting in my hands. How to start such a conversation, where to find the balance between the need for truth and the preservation of our family's unity. As night fell, the answers seemed as elusive as the peace I once took for granted. The air was thick as I finally said, "We need to talk about the DNA test." The words hung between us, stark and unwavering. Her eyes widened slightly, a mix of shock and realization dawning as she understood the gravity of the moment. "Why would you do that?" she asked, her voice a mixture of confusion and fear. "It was necessary," I responded, my tone more resigned than angry. I had to know the truth. Her hands trembled slightly, a visible sign of her nervousness as she tried to find the right words. "I can explain," she started, but the hesitation in her voice did little to reassure me. "Explain then. Tell me why," I pressed, needing to understand how and why our lives had unraveled so dramatically. She took a deep breath, her eyes not meeting mine. "It started a long time ago. I was lonely, you were always busy with work. It didn't mean anything at first." Her voice was low, each word measured, but it did little to temper the sting. "But why keep it a secret? Why continue to deceive me and our children?" The question was a plea for some semblance of reason that I could perhaps grasp. "I thought I could keep it separate. I thought I could prevent it from affecting our family. I was wrong," she admitted, the remorse in her voice palpable. "You were wrong," I echoed, the simplicity of the statement belying the complexity of emotions it carried. The room felt colder, as if her words had leached the warmth from it. "I'm sorry," she added. "I never wanted to hurt you." "Sorry doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change the fact that you lied for years." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me, a raw edge to the pain and betrayal. She nodded, accepting the accusation without defense. "What do you want to do now?" Her question was not just about our relationship, but about the entire structure of our lives. "I don't know," I admitted. "How do I trust anything you say? How do we move past something like this?" "That's up to you. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this, if it's even possible," she offered, desperation tinting her words. The conversation spiraled into a deeper discussion of where things went wrong, of missed signals, and unspoken grievances. It was clear that whatever path lay ahead, it would not be easy. Forgiveness seemed distant, a speck on the horizon that was shrouded in the mist of hurt and betrayal. As the discussion wound down, exhaustion took over, the emotional toll of the confrontation leaving us both drained. The future was uncertain, the only known factor being the long, challenging road ahead, whether together or apart. Leaving the room, the weight of the unresolved issues pressed heavily. The next steps were unclear, each option laden with potential pain and rebuilding, or a severing of the life we had built. The certainty I had sought from the DNA test had led to more questions than answers, the complexity of human relationships defying simple solutions. After the revelations and the raw disclosures, solitude felt both like a balm and a curse. I found myself reaching out to my old friend Mark, someone who had been there through every major milestone in my life, from college graduations to my wedding day. Sitting across from him at the old coffee shop we used to frequent, the familiar smells and sounds did little to ease the turmoil inside. "I don't know what to do next," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. The admission felt like an unraveling, threads of a well-worn tapestry coming loose. Mark listened, his expression somber. "This is tough, but you'll get through it," he said, a reassurance that felt thin given the circumstances. "But how? Every time I look at her, or even the kids, all I see are the lies." The words spilled out, bitter and tangled. "You need to think about what's best for the kids now," Mark advised, shifting the focus away from the hurt to something more pragmatic. "They're still your kids, no matter what a test says." The conversation shifted to practicalities, legal advice, counseling options, ways to broach the subject with the children when the time was right. Mark's voice was a lifeline, steady and sure in a sea of doubt. "Maybe start with a therapist, someone who can help you sort out your feelings and figure out where to go from here," he suggested. Nodding, I considered the idea. Therapy seemed like a concession, an acknowledgement that the damage was too deep to handle alone. Yet the appeal of speaking to someone impartial, someone who could guide me through the labyrinth of emotions and decisions, was undeniable. "Thanks, man," I said as we stood to leave, the weight of the conversation lingering like a shadow. "Anytime," Mark replied, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Remember, you're not alone in this." Leaving the coffee shop, the air felt crisper, the edge of autumn creeping into the late summer warmth. The talk with Mark hadn't solved anything, but it had siphoned off some of the immediate pressure, carving out a space where I could breathe and plan my next steps. Over the next few days, I researched therapists, each name and profile blurring into the next. The decision to make an appointment was another step, small yet significant, on the path to whatever lay ahead. I chose someone experienced in family dynamics and betrayal, hoping their expertise could help navigate the complex web of emotions and decisions. The first session was awkward, the act of laying bare my feelings to a stranger unsettling. Yet, as the hour progressed, the therapist's questions prompted reflections I hadn't allowed myself to fully explore, about my role in our marriage dynamics, about the ways in which communication had broken down, and about how my identity was intertwined with being a husband and father. Each session carved out a bit more understanding, a slow and sometimes painful excavation of the buried truths and wounds. It was a beginning, tentative and fragile, but a beginning nonetheless. Sorting through the fallout of the past weeks, the idea of what to do next haunted every quiet moment. The options lay before me like paths in a dense forest, each one shrouded in mist, unclear and fraught with hidden perils. Could I forgive her? Should we separate? Was there a third path that offered some hope of redemption or reconciliation? Forgiveness seemed like a mountain, its peak lost in the clouds of hurt and betrayal. To forgive her would mean to let go of the pain, to see past the deceit, and to somehow rebuild on the shattered remnants of trust. It sounded noble, forgiving her, but it also felt slightly beyond reach. Every time I considered it, the sounds of her deceptive words echoed in my mind, a reminder of the depth of her betrayal. Separation, on the other hand, was a clear break. It promised an end to the immediate pain, a way to start anew. Yet it also meant tearing apart the fabric of our family, stepping into a world of shared custody, holiday negotiations, and explaining to friends and family why we failed. The thought of seeing the kids on weekends or every other holiday was a sharp sting, a pang of loss for a future I had taken for granted. Then there was the possibility of something else, a middle road. Perhaps we could separate for a while, take time apart to truly gauge the depth of our feelings in the absence of each other. Could distance lend clarity? Would time apart make the heart grow fonder or reveal a chasm too wide to bridge? Each option carried weight, each decision a myriad of consequences. The therapy sessions helped, but they also opened new avenues of thought that were as daunting as they were necessary. I found myself asking not just about the past or what I should do, but who I wanted to be in the aftermath of this upheaval. Was I someone who walked away, or someone who fought to mend what was broken despite the odds? I thought about the kids, their laughter and their plans for the future, how they saw their mom and dad as the bedrock of their existence. Could I pull that rug out from under them? But then, could I stay in a marriage that might be devoid of genuine trust? These questions circled endlessly, a whirlpool of doubt and decision. The emotional weight of this crossroads was overwhelming. It wasn't just a decision about marriage, it was a decision about who I was in the deepest sense. Integrity, forgiveness, love, and resilience, all of it tested in the crucible of infidelity. In quieter moments, I pondered the essence of marriage and commitment. Hadn't I vowed to stick by through better and worse? Yet hadn't she forsaken those same vows? The irony was bitter, the situation a tangled knot of love, duty, and wounded hearts. Finally, I sat down with a pen and paper, listing the pros and cons, the fears and hopes. It was rudimentary, but it helped to see the thoughts in front of me, physical and defined rather than swirling chaos. Decision time was approaching, whether I felt ready or not. Each path was laid out, and soon I'd have to choose which way to step. Choosing a path forward required a clarity I felt I barely possessed, but it was necessary. The decision weighed heavily, an anchor that had to be either cast off or firmly planted. After countless hours of self-reflection, discussions with close friends, and numerous therapy sessions, the choice became slightly clearer. I needed to know if there was anything left of our marriage to save. Could there be enough remnants of our love and life together to start anew, or was it too eroded by deceit? Starting this exploratory journey meant initiating more in-depth conversations with Claire about where we stood and what, if anything, we both wanted to salvage. These weren't easy discussions. They were laden with emotional landmines, anger, regret, and sometimes a glimmer of residual affection that neither of us could fully deny. We agreed on a trial separation within the same home, a practical decision for the sake of the kids, allowing us to navigate our new reality with some semblance of stability for them. Adjusting to this new normal was challenging. Morning routines, meal times, and family activities all carried a bittersweet quality. The children sensed the change, picking up on the tension and the carefully maintained distances. I found ways to ensure they felt loved and secure, spending more one-on-one time with them, from extra bedtime stories to weekend outings. These moments were precious, a salve to the sting of marital discord. Simultaneously, I continued with personal therapy. It was a space to unpack my feelings, to dissect the layers of betrayal, and to consider forgiveness. Forgiveness not just for Claire, but for myself, for all the moments I questioned whether I had ignored signs or neglected her needs. This process was cathartic, but incredibly complex, requiring me to confront uncomfortable truths about myself and the dynamics of our relationship. The dynamics with Claire during this period were equally complex. We were cordial, sometimes even sharing a laugh, a reminder of the ease we once had. Yet, there was an undercurrent of uncertainty in every interaction. Was this ease a sign of potential reconciliation, or merely the comfort of familiarity? The distinction was crucial and not always clear. Our joint counseling sessions addressed these ambiguities. We delved into communication patterns, past resentments, and our hopes for the future. These sessions were tough, often emotionally draining, but they were also illuminating. We began to understand not just what had gone wrong, but why. Claire shared her feelings of loneliness and invisibility, which she felt had led to her betrayal. I shared my sense of betrayal and loss of trust. Through these exchanges, we slowly started to see each other more clearly, not just as the roles we'd fallen into, husband, wife, betrayer, betrayed, but as individuals with deep, complex emotions and needs. As the weeks turned into months, the sharp edges of our pain dulled slightly, giving way to a cautious navigation of our new reality. Whether this would lead us back to each other or further apart wasn't yet clear, but the journey was necessary. Each step, each day brought new challenges and small revelations, each a piece of the puzzle of our future, whether together or apart. The commitment to this process was a testament to the life we had built, a life that deserved the effort, regardless of the final outcome. As the season changed, so did the nature of the transformation within. With the passing months, the contours of a new beginning started to shape around the edges of my previously shattered world. It had been a gradual process, marked by countless moments of introspection and sometimes painful realizations. Each conversation, each therapy session had slowly helped to reframe the understanding of what life could be, moving forward with or without Claire. The decision finally felt right, grounded in a deep sense of understanding and acceptance. It was time to rebuild, not just the relationships around me, but also the internal landscape that had been so deeply scarred by betrayal. The outcome of our efforts to salvage our marriage was nuanced, neither a fairy tale reconciliation nor a complete dissolution, but rather a mutual recognition of our needs and future paths, which might not always align as they once had. The conclusion to remain separated yet amicable, especially for the sake of our children, was one reached through many tears, but also through laughter and shared memories, which reminded us of why we had loved each other in the first place. We agreed to co-parent with all the strength and harmony we could muster, dedicating ourselves to maintaining a stable and loving environment for our children. They deserved no less than our best collective efforts. The children adapted with a resilience that both surprised and reassured me. They seemed to absorb the new normal with a fluidity that I envied at times. Their ability to find joy in the simple daily moments provided a type of healing no therapy could. Their laughter was a reminder that life, despite its unexpected turns, still offered so much to cherish. Personally, the journey through the storm of betrayal into the calmer waters of acceptance and forgiveness of both Claire and myself, was liberating. It allowed me to let go of the weight of unmet expectations and the bitterness of deceit. This process wasn't about forgetting, but about choosing to not let the past dictate the texture of my future. It was about understanding that while I couldn't change what had happened, I could influence what was to come. Now, looking forward, the path was one of self-discovery and renewal. I found new hobbies that brought joy, rekindled old friendships that had been neglected, and started writing again, a passion that had fallen by the wayside in the busyness of married life. Each step was a stone laid on the foundation of a new beginning, one built on the hard-learned lessons of trust, the importance of communication, and the undeniable strength of self-respect. Life is unpredictable, a tapestry woven from threads of joy, pain, love, and loss. The future was still unwritten, but the pen was in my hand, a fact that now felt not daunting, but empowering. With each day, the promise of a new beginning became less about what was lost and more about the possibilities of what was yet to come.